Yo, so let me do this thing proper. I realized something strange on Friday, as in Friday the 14th, that would be. You know what was very interesting? My video that was 26 seconds long went super viral because it highlighted the Etihad Grounds police post. Also, the secondary, as in the backup video, involving the chairman of the Tunampuna regional situation. I just call it situation because it's not a corporation anymore. That video was inside of one of my videos. But what I realized, there were several bot accounts that came at me with some outlandish stuff. And every time I answered and responded, they could not respond because I was speaking the truth. But what's also very interesting is that I realized something. So this is which why we have to involve the word called simultaneously. Now, simultaneously, a man, boy, child called Philip Edward Alexander, he released a video impersonating to be the Express newspapers. Now, you know that's against the law, right? So let's see what Jackie of OCM is going to do. But also, let's highlight the point. If a government minister can do this and show you that he's a pathological liar on multiple occasions, also a racist, why is not the president and the prime minister of Trinidad and Tobago taking him out of his position now for using the N-word and unadulterated 787 times? Also, saying the PNM more than 580 times. Doesn't that show you he has a very big priority? And it's not called serving Trinidad and Tobago. With that also being said, Trinidad and Tobago, send me documentation of anybody that has received a house from Philip Alexander thus far. But what he's been doing is highlighting people, or trying to highlight people, that definitely have no house rental problems. And people who talk bad about the UNC, he victimizes. So let's get off this page now. With that being said, I also highlighted, sorry about going back for a second, that Jeff is who's assisting him. So Trinidad and Tobago and the police service of Trinidad and Tobago, why are you all not arresting Philip Alexander for pushing propaganda, racial hatred and diversion in Trinidad and Tobago as a government minister? Tell me why that's not happening. Right. So now let's get to a very much more dangerous point. There's a friend of the prime minister that wears white glasses that definitely was implicated on multiple occasions for doing illegal stuff, as in using somebody's name, shaking them up, and then making them get implicated in crimes that they never committed. This had happened more than 18 times. His friend, who he used to work on OCM with Jackie, now government Homeland Security Minister, is somebody that was literally told about doing this from Marlon when he was working on that show that they called a crime fighting show. On so much occasions that Marlon asked him, how come you spoke about this person and they passed away after? Yeah, so when these two individuals proclaim to be good news sources and have been caught lying in 2026 more often than the sun is shining, and remember we had plenty sun shining in 2026, how is it that on 3 occasions in the past 2 weeks you all collaborated and made videos talking about Afro-Trinidadians when one of them wholeheartedly was phone called when Karen Alexis was shot 24 times before the emergency health services were called? This is not hearsay I'm speaking. So why would I trust somebody with a news source and having a news channel that is biased? Right, put that into perspective. Furthermore, if you send people home illegally for your own personal regard, this shows another bias, which you're a government minister and want to listen. It's very interesting. Hi, good day. It's very interesting. So this is what's transpiring in our country. So now, let's get to the third point. Gerald Ramdeen, I'll highlight in the other videos coming up now, and also Anand Ramlogan are guilty of certain things. So how is it that nobody oversaw that he's now the chairman of NGC. Nobody ever saw that coming. So now, let's get back to why this is interesting what happened on Friday. Barry PATRIOT, also Philip Alexander, came at me with bot accounts. And literally, one of them responded. He says, so what are you using bot accounts? It's important that I get my message across. This is the people who you want to trust as government ministers. Now, with that being said, look at all the videos I lined up inside of this video. Tell me if you trust them. And remember, Barry, you're a fucking piece of shit. Don't ever come around me again. And that's why I'm doing this to you now. Jackass. Money generated from the energy sector has been very important in the past few days. So within that being said, everybody knows. A lot of people internationally know me. A lot of people speak with me, correspond with me, who are not agenda-pushing journalists or pathological liars with white glasses that take men in shagonas. With that being said, Prasad Bisesa noted that the two agreements signed in Venezuela could send approximately 7 trillion cubic feet of gas from Venezuela to Trinidad and Tobago for processing at the country's LNG and petrochemical plants. Simple facts, though. The UNC government has nothing to do with this deal. Trinidad and Tobago did not have a seat at the negotiating table. We may well get only a gas processing fee, no profits, revenue from sales, and no say on the sales price and therefore the profit. The Middle Eastern bagmen that work for Donald Trump, Kushners, are involved. When Trump loses the middle term elections, there will be questions and investigations onto where the Venezuelan oil and gas money went. Delcy and Venezuela get the autonomy back, their autonomy back, and it will help to pay for Kamala and the UNC government. The rest of us in Trinidad and Tobago might catch astray. Now, understand what I just read out to you. You see the stupidity that Mr. Rudal Munilal is doing constantly? I want you all to take notice of something else. Hold a second. So when you outright do this, as in representing the article on top, Data Center for Golconda, Energy Minister confirms the site for government-approved project, residents and concerns over heat and noise pollution. Right, that's very interesting for one major reason. The reason I'm saying that there are friends of mine that live Arizona, that live Texas, that live New Jersey, that did very specific tests and research on all these things going on. Respiratory problems, that's one. Disease as in cancer, that's 2. Noise pollution, that's 3. And furthermore, the lacking of resources from Trinidad and Tobago to process and cool down the systems that are integrated or want to be integrated into Golconda. This is ridiculous, is our understatement. So on top of that also, we are reading on the article on the bottom. There's a leak of confidential emails. And Kamala Prasad Bisesa definitely wants Trinidad and Tobago to trust the CCJ and that to be the only legal entity that governs everything that is going on here. But when you have the Chief Justice, very suspect, who was definitely appointed in this regime's 10 years thus far, that's one thing. But when you have the Speaker of the House, then the Junior Speaker of the House, then the now President is all underneath your umbrella, you have some questions to ask. So bear in mind, Rudal Munilal is the guy who proudly touting now this data center. But look at this. Rudal Munilal launches back to school aid program for day-based children to get to school supplies in their new term. Mind you, this is now Trinidad and Tobago. This is going to be the worst opening term in Trinidad and Tobago history, where parents do not have money for books, money for clothes, money for shoes. Furthermore, there's the most and the highest unemployment rate in Trinidad and Tobago history. You know who attributed to this? There's a certain big bird who came eating doubles with a government minister up in Eddie Hart grounds. And hence, so that is why I'm showing you this. It is called deflection, people. You make yourself look good in one way and then take back with the other hand while it's wiping somebody's ass. So don't try to make Trinidad and Tobago people assholes, Mr. Rudolal Molilal. You owe already $375 million for doing a corrupt deal. And with interest, it's going to come up to about 410. I'm waiting patiently. And then the day when you got the contract for $1.1 billion to do houses, you still owe that, but you thought you would have gotten the contract and the public wouldn't have said anything. So I like assholes like yourself. Assholes like yourself who like to do shit like that. Now, why I'm highlighting this, you asked Kamala Persad-Bissessar for the Friday off, but you went to another Caribbean island and posted a picture of a Victoria's Secret panty and a pillow. That's very interesting also. So now with that being said, the bottom of this article is rather interesting. The PDO against businessman accused of running brothel and human trafficking. Do you know who's involved in human trafficking who just happens to be a Minister of Homeland Security? Do you all remember he denied having a brother-in-law and a certain wife that was originally from Carnage? Do you all remember that? Yeah. So within that, who was involved in human trafficking and was in denial of it and also got suspended? Yeah. Let's do have a good day now thinking about that. Really interesting. I remember there's two ministers with the same title as in the same last name. They were in the news earlier this year. Both of them are pathological liars, but you know what they both also do? They don't mind their children. Also, one in particular piques my interest because, and I quote, this is his own words, anybody that talks Kamala Persad-Bissessar should get their visas revoked. Do you all remember that stupid statement, Trinidad and Tobago? So look at this now, what I'm showing you. In coordination with the United States Department of Health and Human Services, the U.S. Department of the State will revoke U.S. passports of those who owe significant child support debt. Anyone owing child support debt should arrange payment now in the relevant state child support enforcement agency to prevent passport revocation. If outside the United States, when their passport is revoked, individuals with significant debt will be eligible only for limited validity passport for direct return to the United States. Learn more at travelstate.gov/child support. Also very fucking interesting, Trinidad and Tobago. Do you all remember this at all? Anand must explain giving himself silk. Former Attorney General Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj, you hear that? AKA Big Snake. That's what Sando used to call him from since a certain drug lord was alive. Says Attorney General Anand Ramlogan must explain why he found it relevant to award senior counsel status to himself and Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar on December 30th. Maharaj says this must take place before any discussion can be had about the possibility of abolishing the system. On Wednesday, Ramlogan said it is time to come to examine and continuing the relevance of character of the award and criteria for the same. What's interesting also, Trinidad and Tobago, is that they tend to think that people forget the things they've done and who they are aligning with in the public while or formerly being in public office. It's very interesting. Do take a look at the individual who we have in question here right now. Notice he was never a member of the financial sector of Trinidad and Tobago. But how could somebody make a phone call and a certain bank is missing or lacking, in fact I should say, foreign exchange, but somebody can send over a suitcase full of foreign currency? Don't you find that very peculiar? Other than that also, the state goes after Ramlogan, Rambeen, over legal fees. Government wants ex-AG's salary. Right. So it's very interesting. So I didn't forget this at all. This is interesting because I want you all to read with me. The claim comes more than a year after Director of Public Prosecutions Roger Jasper SC made a shocking announcement of his decision to discontinue the case because the state's star witness Vincent Nelson Casey refused to testify against them until the end of his civil case over an alleged breach of indemnity agreement with the government. Continue going now. Do you all remember this man? Right. I want you to take close reference of everything transpiring right now in 2026. So let's begin reading. Ramdeen resigns, not designs, because he wants to design certain things definitely. But it's designing his pockets, the new house, preferably something into the kitchen and the wardrobe, you know. But anyway, resigns before court hearing. Gerald Ramin left and his attorney, Wayne Sturge, make their way to the Port of Spain Magistrates Court yesterday. The opposition, UNC, will have a new senator in the Senate this afternoon following the resignation of Gerald Ramdeen on Monday. Ramdeen tendered his resignation to the opposition leader Kamla Persad-Bissessar prior to his 9 a.m. appearance in the Port of Spain Magistrates Court. The resignation was accepted. Ramdeen and the former Attorney General Anand Ramlogan were charged with corruption-related offences last Friday. Persad-Bissessar, who has maintained the decision to charge Ramdeen and Ramlogan, were politically motivated because of upcoming elections, spoke to the situation during yesterday's parliament break. Interesting. So, with that being said, what you need to understand, how is it that the chairman of the NGC definitely had no input in what transpired in the hard grounds? If you tell me that, yeah, I know that's a blatant lie. Because what's going on right now, how could you put up a structure after you got a warning about it, and then days after proudly embarrassing everybody who's speaking about it? On top of that also, Rudal Monilal, you're a special kind of cacahole. So in other words, you go to the most racist part of the country and give those children school books while bringing the AI generated city and data centers to the Golconda area and think nobody would notice. No, deflection is a big thing, jackass. Especially when you owe how much? Yeah, we don't forget these things. I love when you guys try to lie. I love making it out also. Vitamin D is good for the skin. Especially when people could go Aruba or Barbados in a certain hotel and post up pictures with panties. It's a very shocking nation we live in. So the thing about it, shaking your head, is no longer a phrase. It's what comes naturally because of this government. So so much things you could talk about. Only so much time. That's why when I reveal things, people are in shock. And they send assholes like Felix Sinanan to say things about me. Gideon Hanuman saying, how do you feel about that jackass being your friend? Ansley Ajoda, how do you feel about that jackass being your friend? Rajendra Ramlogan, how do you feel about that fucking jackass being your friend? With that being said, Trinidad and Tobago, I love you guys. And be careful about individuals who have black Vizels, black Ford Rangers, and black Hiluxes circling your house at any given time. Deuces.